in pursuit of health and wisdom. Sapio with Buck Joffrey.
Welcome, everybody. This is Buck Joffrey from Sapio with Buck Joffrey, and we are doing something special today. It is a April Fool's episode, and based on that, I have looked long and hard, and well, it wasn't very hard, actually. I found a fool to do the show with, and his name is Phil Ferragamo, which may or may not be his real last name, but it is what he insists on going by. So, Phil Ferragamo, how are you today, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Buck. It's good to be here.
Yes, and Phil, in honor of April Fool's Day, you are definitely the biggest fool I know, and so I asked you to kind of use a fool's perspective, and I know you listen to the show and see what kinds of questions you had for me. I don't know. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, just so people have an idea here. I mean, how long have you been Phil Ferragamo?
About 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. And is this a reference to a certain type of shoes you like? Is that the issue?
Oh, I'm surprised you actually know about this brand.
I happen to have a couple of those. It's a very nice brand. I wouldn't have thought I would have seen you in them, but well, okay. Well, why don't we just shoot here? Let's start. Let's see what kind of questions you have for me.
All right. So imagine this: you're having a good night. Mm-hmm. You got yourself some wine. You have the TV on, and you're just so ready to chill. And then your wife turns around and asks you if you want to have another baby. Mm-hmm. So, what is the best way to become infertile without having to go through a procedure like a vasectomy?
Okay, and so just to be clear here, condoms are out, right? Because you're trying to hide this from your wife. Is that the
exactly?
Okay, so you want to appear inadvertently or accidentally or infertile just because you are without her noticing it. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, it's a good question, actually. And I guess there is actually some things that you can do. Think about it. And let me start out, Phil Ferragamo, by telling you that this is not medical advice. This is not something I want you to sue me about later because I told you something as a physician. This is just some pure observations on what could potentially help you with your problem of fertility, right? So I can think of a protocol that probably would be relatively effective and actually wouldn't be so bad. And I think it would fit in with your lifestyle pretty well. Nightly, every night, you have access to a sauna or maybe a hot tub. No, you don't. Well, you need that. Either that or like steaming hot bath, right? Like just steaming hot bath. Okay. And while you're in the hot tub, let's just call it a hot tub or the sauna, ideally you're going in a sauna, 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And then what you do is you kind of go from the sauna to the hot tub back and forth. And then when it gets too hot, you stop and then you start chain smoking. Okay. And then you drink heavily. So it sounds actually like a pretty good time, right? It's a protocol. I know that this is something that you would probably do whether or not. You're probably already infertile is my guess, based on what I know about you.
Wait, how do you know I'm infertile?
Well, I'm just looking at you, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at you.
You're thinking of an incel, not infertile.
Okay, so heat. Okay, that's what I'm getting at here. So it has a major effect on sperm count. So you can, this is interesting actually. So with saunas, there's some studies at least showing that you can significantly reduce sperm count and motility. Even if I think there was a study basically with 2 sessions of sauna per week for 3 months, that would decrease sperm production. So if you're doing this every night, that's going to probably help. Smoking too. The studies show about 20% lower sperm counts than non-smokers. Alcohol has a big effect, too, on sperm count. So all of these things are going to be very helpful to what you're trying to do. Now, the other thing I would recommend, this is probably something you could benefit from, is exogenous testosterone replacement. You know, what would really help you become infertile in this process is also exogenous testosterone. So you start going on testosterone replacement therapy. Specifically, what you're going to do is you're going to try to use some of the injectable testosterone or some of these more traditional ways of getting testosterone for men who have hypogonadism. And the reason for that is that you end up lowering the amount of sperm that's actually produced by the testes. And the reason for that is that when you have this testosterone that you're taking exogenously from outside the body, that's what I mean by exogenously, in case you didn't know, it suppresses this feedback loop from the pituitary gland to the testes. There's these hormones called LH and FSH that end up typically being involved with spermatogenesis, and that feedback loop gets broken. So this is an interesting conundrum that you have, because most men try to become fertile. So what I'm giving you is all the ways to become infertile, right? So if you start testosterone treatment, do that protocol where you're in the sauna and the hot tub, chain smoking every night and drinking, that should do the trick, I think. Now, just be careful, though, when you're going on the testosterone treatment, if you go on nasal testosterone or oral testosterone, like basically pills or nasal sprays, those are much less likely to make you infertile. So I think you've got it in you.
Because I would have gone on estrogen treatment. I would have think it's the other way around. This is very good to know.
Yeah, no, it's actually what you're doing is, so you could get all jacked up at the same time, right? Okay. You could juice. You just juice it all up. You juiced up and chain smoking and smoke. I mean, you'd just be like a cool guy from the 80s or something like that, and just be infertile.
That's interesting, because when you think about porn stars, they're all from the 80s with a mustache. Next question.
Okay.
So in a previous episode of Sapio with Buck Joffrey, you went through this with Dr. Viglione, and you came to the conclusion that there's actually more downside than upside for having wine. Mm-hmm. Now, what about cocaine?
Well, yeah, I wish I could tell you otherwise, but yeah, there's not a whole lot of upside to cocaine. Now, well, cocaine, we do use it, just so you know. We do use it in medical, in the hospital. We used to use it all the time, actually, when somebody would come in and break their nose, and you'd want to numb their nose before resetting it. The most potent way of doing that is by putting cocaine-soaked pledgets in somebody's nose. So yeah, that's really probably not something that you want to try at home. I wouldn't add that to your protocol with the sauna and all that stuff. I think that might put you over the edge.
Okay, so no cocaine is not.
Yeah, I don't think cocaine's such a good idea.
How about meth?
Yeah, no.
Heroin?
Okay, all right. I get it. You get it. None of these illicit drugs are going to get you any positive effects, okay? So let's move on.
There's another episode that you did on, reversing skin aging, or at least anti-skin aging.
Yes.
My little brother, he's in high school. So how can we make him look older so he doesn't have to bother me to buy him alcohol anymore?
Oh, my God. You've been buying your younger brother alcohol? Have you really? Oh, my God.
Oh, Phil Ferragamo has.
Phil Ferragamo has. Okay. It wasn't you. It's like the alter ego. Okay. Well, listen, this protocol actually probably isn't a whole lot different than the one that I put you on for your infertility, with your brother. Because basically what you're saying is, how can I wreck my skin, right? How can I make my skin age quicker? Which is, again, the opposite of what people would usually want to do. I'm going to use that information, that logic, to kind of come up with another protocol for your brother. And again, what I would say is he could do that same heat and sauna protocol. And the reason is we're going to try to dehydrate him, which helps to age your skin. But in addition to that, when he takes breaks and he's chain smoking, which again is really bad for your skin, and drinking, which is dehydration and bad for your skin, what I would recommend is doing this not during the night, but during the day, and going out there without sunscreen and just lying out in the sun. So I think that combination of things probably would be the most effective at rapidly aging his skin. Yeah, I think that's about it there. I don't have anything else to add, but and also one more thing. Try to keep him up at night as much as possible. There was a study about how people who are chronically under, who have too little sleep, get poor sleep chronically, they look older physically as well. So those things are probably your best bet.
Okay, I'll try.
All right, good.
Okay. Next question. So, how can I wear an Oura ring without feeling like telling everyone that I meet that I'm wearing an Oura ring? You've mentioned it in a lot of episodes.
You know, it's so funny that you say that. Okay, it is so funny that you say that. What I would say is this. Okay, I know you're married, Phil Ferragamo. Have that kid. Okay, then you won't have time to talk to anyone. Not try to make conversation with anyone. I mean, I have to tell you that I find it very useful. The whole the Oura ring, because it gives me something to talk about. Now, I am a single guy, and when I run out of things to say, I say, "Have you ever seen one of these?" It's an Oura ring. And that gives me something to talk about, and it also shows that I take care of myself. And, at least while I continue to work on my biceps, it's a useful surrogate for that. So,
okay, so you're saying that girls actually dig it when you talk about Oura rings?
Yeah, actually, it's been a net positive for sure.
Okay, I find that very hard to believe.
But I live in Southern California. It's kind of the thing here.
All right, next question. So for cold therapy, instead of dunking myself in cold water, you have to fill a bathtub and find a ton of ice cubes, and it's just a very complicated process. What if I just swallow a ton of ice cubes?
Let me think here. Let's talk about, just so that people get something out. Let's review, why people do cold therapy in the first place. One reason for it, and some of the benefits, enhancement of the release of norepinephrine. Okay, so what happens is cold exposure stimulates the part of the nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, which is a fight or flight system, and that releases something called norepinephrine, and that is a neurotransmitter, basically a chemical in the brain that is involved with focus, attention, mood, elevation, and this can also help with mental clarity, which I think you could probably use, and reduce symptoms of depression as well. Also thought to potentially contribute to some fat loss and improved insulin sensitivity. Another major positive effect, again, this is are the anti-inflammatory effects. So there's been some decent evidence about sort of reduction in systemic inflammation. And we know that's a big deal for a lot of things, metabolic disease. And we did an entire show on inflammaging, that kind of thing. So that's good. Vagal tone enhancement is another one. So you have vagus nerve stuff. So that's sort of the opposite of that sympathetic nervous system, where it's fight or flight. This is vagal tone is the relaxing part of the peripheral nervous system, and that ultimately gets triggered after that sympathetic stuff kind of dies down. That seems to reduce stress levels, lower heart rate, improve digestive processes. There are also some suggestion on improved sleep quality and endorphin releases as well. Now, as for your question specifically about ingesting a bunch of ice cubes instead, in theory, I think you could get some of the benefits because, I mean, you are going to, you would reduce your core temperatures quite a bit. But I don't think you would get the same potential benefit because of one major reason, and that is you would end up with massive brain freeze. Okay? You know what brain freeze is?
What's brain freeze?
Have you ever had it? You've never had brain freeze?
I don't feel anything anymore.
You don't feel anything. So brain freeze, it's that like you eat too much like ice or something cold quickly, and all of a sudden you get this crazy headache. It's a really horrible feeling. I don't know that you've never had it, but so maybe this would work for you, this whole eating ice thing. But what happens is that you get this cold stimulates the trigeminal nerve, which is a facial sensation nerve, and it gives you this wicked headache, and that's what brain freeze is. Anyway, I do, I think you should try this, Phil. I think you should try to eat as many ice cubes as you can and report back. I mean, put on a device, see what it does to your heart rate variability. In theory, it should increase your heart rate variability, should make your sleep better. Why don't you do this? And can you do me a favor when you do eat a whole bunch of ice, like a bag of ice, would you have it please recorded? I don't know, Phil. I think you're onto something. You might give that a try. And I'd certainly, more than anything, like to see it on video and what happens to you.
Okay. We can go through the result in next year's April Fool's episode.
Okay.
If I'm not already
if you're still around.
All right. Next question. So as you said, I sleep late, but because I stay up at like 5 a.m. listening to Sapio with Buck Joffrey.
Yeah.
So is there a way for me to trick my brain into thinking that I'm sleeping early though? Because you did mention something about like exposure to nightlight or exposure to daylight to kind of manipulate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a series of first of all, don't leave your house, and then get lights that basically correspond with a different time zone. So I mean, you could have lights going on and off, pre-programmed in such a way that you are, you're basically living in another time zone. You try that. Still might not be great, but because you're not going to have a lot of that. You probably won't feel good because of you're going to deprive yourself of natural light. But I think you've got bigger problems even than that. So I don't think that this would be. I don't think this is the worst thing you could do.
Okay. All right. I guess next question. So I snore, and my wife, what she does is like to stop me from snoring. She will smother me with the pillow for like 10 minutes straight, and then I would just not move and not make any sound for the next 8 hours or something. What is the science behind that?
Well, this is a very interesting question. First of all, let's address your snoring. Do you know the difference between snoring and sleep apnea? So snoring's noise, and that's kind of what you're talking about as far as we know. And the noise is coming from these tissues, whether that's the combination of your nose or the back of your throat, your tongue, tonsils, all that stuff. And typically when as you get into certain stages of sleep, you start losing some of the tone in those muscles because they're all muscles, right? Like your tongue is a big muscle and stuff. And when that happens, you get sort of these floppy tissues, and that noise from the vibration of air coming in against those tissues is what snoring is. Snoring itself is not necessarily bad for you, but sleep apnea is. So sleep apnea is when those tissues actually obstruct air from coming in. And then you get these situations where you kind of will stop breathing momentarily. And that is a big problem, actually. And it's probably massively underdiagnosed. It's an independent risk for cardiovascular death, high blood pressure, all sorts of issues, cortisol. And so it doesn't sound like you're necessarily stopping breathing until your wife actually makes you stop breathing. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I don't really know why you go completely quiet. I really don't. It's sort of not clear to me, because initially when you said that, I was thinking, well, gosh, this is just asphyxia, right? So she's just stopping you from breathing. But it doesn't sound like you're trying to fight back. Normally, if you have obstructive sleep apnea and you stop breathing, or say somebody is trying to strangle you in your sleep by stopping air coming through, you normally would have the CO2 in your blood would go up. That's called hypercapnia, and that would also, and then there would be a decrease in blood oxygen levels as well. But that hypercapnia actually sort of creates this reflex that makes you want to breathe. That's why you can't hold your breath long enough to just die, because essentially you kind of just, you'll start to pass out, and then you'll have this, massive reflex of you starting to breathe. So I'm not really clear on why you go completely silent, but that's a little bit of the physiology behind it. Now, I will say this, and this is probably a useful thing for many husbands and wives out there, or people sharing beds with others, which is those noises that happen with snoring. They're frequently, again, these things are often very positional in nature. So sometimes a gentle nudge, like sort of like, tilting somebody's head up, maybe their chin up a little bit, or if they're sleeping on their back, more than likely, moving their head to the side, that is going to make that noise probably dissipate. It sounds like your wife is going for a much bigger reward than that, though, when she's got the pillow on your head and she just hasn't succeeded yet.
Yeah, I think this podcast is going to end up as evidence for a future legal case.
I think that's probably true. It's going to be in court, and you're going to, back from a voice from the dead, Phil Ferragamo.
Okay. So next question. Why is it that every time I do psychedelics, I wake up naked in the kitchen?
Wait. So you do psychedelics, you wake up naked in the kitchen?
Yeah, every single time.
Every single time. And it doesn't matter what kind of psychedelics it is. Mushrooms, LSD, ketamine, you always end up in the kitchen naked?
Yeah, it doesn't even matter where I am. I could be in the library, and then when I wake up, I'm naked in my own kitchen.
Yeah. Now, when you aren't doing psychedelics, do you ever end up naked in your kitchen?
Just naked.
But not in your kitchen. Okay. Well, it could just, maybe you're just hungry. Maybe you're just, I don't know. It has nothing to do with your psychedelics, but it does say a lot about you.
All right. Okay, next question.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about inflammation a lot.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing as, when I walk into church, I burst into a flame?
Did you ask? Wait, this wasn't on your list, by the way.
No, I just came over there.
Okay. Inflammation. No, I think you're confusing inflammation for spontaneous combustion. which we haven't covered yet on the podcast. We haven't covered spontaneous combustion and the causes, but it is a lethal disorder for sure.
Okay, next question. So you did mention that you should stop drinking water before bed to prevent nocturia, which is when you wake up in the middle of the night with an urge to pee. But what if I have to do a poo?
Are you saying that you wake up in the middle of the night and have to
every night with an urge to poo?
Really? Well, that's interesting. That's this is actually, it's interesting. There are some reasons that you would do that. I mean, you're not taking laxatives every night, are you?
No, not that I know of.
No? Okay. Castor oil, anything like that? No, nothing? Okay, so there are real disorders that you can have if this is an issue. I mean, this can be part of irritable bowel syndrome, part of irritable bowel disease. There's dietary factors in this too, and I know you like your spicy food sometimes, a spicy, fatty, or high in fiber right before bedtime. That can stimulate digestion. You can get bowel activity then, leading to the need to empty in the middle of the night. It might even be those ice cubes, Phil Ferragamo. It could be the ice cubes. We don't know what those ice cubes do to you, but try that. Hormonal changes, fluctuations, diabetes. You can have like some of these neurological conditions that you can get even from diabetes and that sort of thing that can kind of screw up your your control mechanisms, multiple sclerosis, diabetic neuropathy, as I mentioned. Anyway, you could have some real issues there. So that one actually is a fairly real question, I think. It's something that worth looking into and having somebody look into that problem. One other thing that seems to potentially cause this type of thing is, believe it or not, acid reflux. And you wonder why, because it's not really a bowel issue, but acid reflux does sometimes create sort of a digestive system in disarray, so that can also lead to that type of problem. But it's not something that, unless you've got a digestive disorder, is typically that common, but probably needs a workup.
Got it. Okay. Just also, I guess, also a slightly related question is that, is it true that if someone puts your hand in warm water, you pee your bed? Because, like, I swear somebody has been putting my hand in warm water for like the past 5 nights.
So you're just saying somebody's, so you've been peeing in bed for the last 5 nights? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's been like a randomized control study about, putting your hand in water and that causing pee, but it's probably a study that needs to be done.
All right. Well, that's all my questions, Buck. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer them.
Well, I appreciate your time, Phil. In honor of April Fool's Day, you are indeed the fool. That's it for this week on Sapio with Buck Joffrey. This is Buck Joffrey. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of levity. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Sapio with Buck Joffrey. A quick reminder that while I am, in fact, a surgeon, nothing I say should be construed as medical advice. Now, make sure to include your physician in any medical decisions you make. And also, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure to show your support with a like, share, or subscribe. Until next time, this is Buck Joffrey for Sapio with Buck Joffrey.